welcome everybody. We're just allowing a few more people to join. It's quite busy. Actually, if I make Alex, I make you co-host as well. Then if I'm talking, you'll see them as well. So excellent. Yeah, this is going to be this. We'll just give it a minute because otherwise, as quick as we talk, somebody will ask to be admitted. We won't get anywhere. We are not going to have any slides. So yeah, please feel free to keep your camera on if you feel comfortable to do that, because it's nice for us to see your smiling faces and not that we're not just talking out into the ether, which we do a lot of, don't we, Alex?
We do.
It's nice to see real people, hopefully smiling. That always helps. So I will put a link in the chat. I will need to go and get that. Hang on a second. Let's rearrange my screen so that I can actually see what I need to. And I will put a link to an easy retro board in the chat. If you haven't put any questions in there and you have something you desperately want to ask, please pop it in the easy retro board, because we're going to use the board in order to answer questions, because we think, well, I don't think, we know we're not going to have enough time to answer all of your questions. So we're going to put them in the board, and when we get to that part, we will vote on them. So we don't want questions in the chat. We want them in the easy retro board. And I'm going to have to keep saying that and putting it for everybody else who comes in later. But I'll leave it a bit before we do that. So while I let some more people in, do you want to start introduce yourself, Alex, and perhaps the session, and then we will we'll dive on into the detail.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, or good afternoon in the UK anyway. So I'm Alex Leigh. I am, you'll be unsurprised to hear, a data governance consultant. So Nicola and I have known each other for quite a few years now, and we've done quite a few joint webinars around sort of data governance, data strategy, all of that stuff. So it's a little bit different for us, and it is because we get asked this question a lot, which is, how do you become a data governance consultant? And when we actually talked to each other, we realized we didn't really know, other than we kind of fell into it. But then when we thought about it a bit more, we kind of thought about the process that we went through, and that's what we've put on the easy retro board, the kind of life cycle, if you will, of what we've done. So I think it's probably worth saying up front that none of us would consider this stuff as best practice. We're not giving you like a cookie cutter solution that says, if you do this, you'll be a successful DG consultant. Nicola and I have had our share of disappointments. We've made mistakes. There's things that if we look back, we wouldn't do again. And we don't have I mean, while we're both in a fortunate position, I think, where we've got a good client base and sort of a good sort of a nice amount of work, we would never take that for granted. We don't believe we have the solution that says, how do you kind of have a pipeline of work that's just enough but not too much when you've got no scale. So but we hope we can share with you some insights and some ideas around about what we've done. And Nicola and I are coming from slightly different situations. So I've always been focused in this role on higher education in the UK. So all of my work is for universities and further education establishments, whereas Nicola's got a far broader sort of portfolio of clients across multiple sectors. And hopefully it'll be interesting for you to understand why we've taken those two decisions. So that's me. Nicola, you wanna go?
Yeah, me. Yeah. So my name is Nicola Askham, and guess what? I'm a data governance consultant. A bit like Alex said, in the early days of being a data governance consultant, I had a number of people gave me really valuable advice, and it was really, really helpful. And so I think the same as Alex. A number of people approach me every week now asking if they can just have a Zoom coffee, a virtual coffee, and pick my brains. And I want to give back, because I wouldn't be where I am if people didn't help me. But I get more requests than I have hours free to do it. So we decided this was the best possible way, because we thought that a number of you probably have the same questions, or perhaps would like to know what other people would ask, even if you hadn't thought of that question up front. So that is the whole purpose of today. So Alex and I thought we both share perhaps a little bit about our journeys into data governance consultancy, which I think answers some of the questions that are in the board. But before that, we wanted to talk about the difference, because there are, we say data governance consultant, and guess what? We're data governance geeks. We do love a good definition, but it could mean different things to different people. And you've got the difference between being... Oh, sorry. Can everybody put themselves on mute? So what we're trying to do is, differentiate between being an employee of a consultancy, maybe being a permanent employee, being perhaps a contractor, what you'd otherwise consider as a contractor, versus being an independent consultant. So people who've joined in the last few minutes while I was talking, we're going to put questions on an easy retro board. I will put the link in the chat. And then when we get to that section, we will go over and have a look at the questions, and I'll get you all to vote on them, but not yet. You can't at the moment. It's all there. So, Alex, shall I start on the difference between them all? So
you go for it. I think you do a better job than me.
So definitions put me on the spot. So a data governance consultant, being an employee of a consultancy, still makes you a data governance consultant. It has certain advantages. You have that guaranteed income. Let's face it, that's going to be a really important one. You've probably got, you've then got a team around you. You've got support. You've got people doing all the other jobs like marketing, finance, things like that. You've probably got, professional development, things like that already included. You've got all your normal benefits like holiday, sick leave. You can take time off and still get paid, which is just a dim and distant memory now. But so that's kind of, you're a permanent employee. But the upsides are that you're getting a huge amount of experience. You're moving around different companies, different sectors. You're really getting to hone your skill. A contractor, I generally, if you went to the actual strict definition of a contractor and a consultant are not the same thing. A contractor does what they're told to do by the client, whereas quite often when we're contracting as data governance experts, we are actually advising them how to do it because they don't know how to do it, which is why they've got a contractor in to help them. So the upsides to this is you probably get paid more than being a permanent employee. And you still have a somewhat of a team around you, although they are of the client and you're not really supposed to do all that because of the horrible IR35 rules, which is another conversation and probably somebody else's webinar because I'm not an expert on IR35. However, when you come down to your benefits and support, well, there aren't really any. If you don't work, you don't get paid. If you want to go on holiday, then you have to add your lost earnings on top of the cost of your holiday. And things like that. So just things to think about. And when the contract ends, where's your next work coming from? At least the consultancy, somebody else is looking for your next piece of work for you. Then you can go all the way through to the other extreme is what Alex and I have become today through different routes to get there, is we are truly independent consultants. We consult and advise our clients. We do not act as interim data governance leads or heads of. We don't have a contract that involves us doing even 1 day a week for a client. This means we can probably charge, we do charge more than a contractor does. We are paying for our many years of experience. So, this is great. However, we're responsible for getting each and every single piece of work. And I can get some amazing income on 1 day, and then I might not actually do paid work for a few days. So there are swings and roundabouts. And, when people kind of say, we've seen what you charge for your courses, you must be rolling in it. Yeah, I would do if 100 people were doing my course every day, but they don't. So it's that kind of getting that balance. On the plus side, the money is a plus side. But again, we're the same as the contractor. If we don't work, we don't earn. We're totally responsible for our work. And because we've chosen to go independent, that route, we don't have a regular contractor monthly salary coming in. I might get a few hundred from writing a blog for somebody, and then I might be doing a piece of work for another company that has the most horrendous payment terms. So I might have to wait 3 months for that money. So, it's a very peaks and troughs in terms of cash flow, and you've got to be able to manage that. You don't have a team around you to support you. You do absolutely everything from raising the invoices to chasing the people that don't pay, to doing your marketing, your sales calls, and you've got to find time to do the client work as well. It makes it, I'm really not selling this, am I? However, it's really great. It has all sorts of advantages. As long as you've got enough income coming in, you have the choice on who you work for and who you don't, and what work you accept. So,
Yeah.
did I miss anything out there, Alex?
No, that's really good. That's really good. You were kind of making me a bit depressed on the last one, but no, I
Sorry.
think it's.
Anyway, it's
No, I think that's a
really
really
good
good.
being a consultant.
I think it's helpful because I think people do get confused, and I think there is the independence of the role. I think is the key thing for me. Is the fact that you, as Nicola was saying, you can get to choose your clients if you're in a position to do that. You choose which work you want to do. You're not carrying anybody else's target. So we'll kind of talk about how we got into it and sort of why we went down that way. We don't want to spend too much time saying what we've done. We want to answer your questions, but hopefully we can explain the route we took in and why we took it, and that might give you a bit of insight into sort of different routes into the role and why Nicola and I both ended up at that end of the continuum.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to start or do you want me to?
You can crack on, Nicola.
So, I can tell you categorically, I never intended to be an independent consultant, because one of the questions on the board made me laugh because it said, "How did you decide?" Well, I didn't. It kind of happened. So, about 18 months before I was brave enough to leave the bank, I'd been working at Lloyd's Bank for many, many, many years, and went to a big meeting at which I couldn't help myself, normally like jumping in and talking about data governance. And at the end of the meeting, somebody I knew said to me, "Could you possibly see John out for me?" Because John was a contractor, and Lloyd's Bank at that time had very strict rules on contractors were not allowed to wander around buildings that was not their home base unaccompanied. And I said, "Yeah, I'll walk John out." And John said to me on the way back, "So how long have you been doing this?" And I said, what, 18 years? And he went, "What, data governance?" And I went, "Oh, no, sorry. I thought you meant how long had I worked for the bank?" And he went, "You are kidding me. You haven't worked for the bank 18 years. And I went, "Yeah." And I thought he was going to flatter me with how young I looked. But actually what he wanted to say was, you can't be a permanent employee
Hello.
because of the
And
knowledge you have
sorry to
about
disturb you.
data governance. You know things that you should be contracting them. Good, yeah, I don't think so. I really, it's a far too scary not knowing whether the next paycheck's coming. And also, let's be honest about this. I still suffer from the perennial imposter syndrome. So I didn't think I knew enough to be doing the job I was doing, let alone go and be a contractor. This guy didn't give up. He kept inviting me for coffee or for lunch every time he was in the area of my office. And in the end, I had to say to him, "Look, I'm not going to do this because, we've got a mortgage to pay and I'm just too scared about getting a contract." So roll on 2 years from that, the bank has a big restructure and I'm told I can't do data governance anymore. And at this point in my career, I really realized I found the thing that I'm really passionate about, even though it bores a lot of other people. And I wanted to stick with doing data governance. And so I was asking around in the bank because Lloyd's Bank is huge. Other people were doing it, but nobody really had an upcoming thing. We even considered if we'd moved to Bristol for a job that was potentially coming up. It was all really like heart searching stuff. Because I really, up until then, I'd always been a good career person and done what they said I had to do next until I got the chance to make up my own role. And I remembered at this point, LinkedIn existed, but I didn't know it did. And my network outside of the bank consisted of one person I'd met at a conference, who you may have heard of, Aaron Zorns. So he's known as a master data management guru. And I sent him an email and going, "You don't suppose you remember me?" See, imposter syndrome still kicking in. I really want to do data governance, but the bank said I can't anymore because of a restructure. What should I? Do you think my job exists elsewhere? Because I had a mentor internally in the bank, and she told me I was just having this pipe dream and my ideal job didn't exist, and I should have just be grateful that I'd had a couple of years of doing it internally, kind of thing. And Aaron wrote back almost immediately and said, "Oh, yes, of course I remember you. Lovely to hear from you. Please send me your CV." And I was really waiting for him to come back and tell me I didn't have enough experience and perhaps go and work on a data architecture team or do something, get more experience. And he didn't. He came back within 24 hours to say, I hope you don't mind. I've shared your CV with some friends of mine, a consultancy based in Copenhagen. They're looking at setting up a UK office. So through that route, I got brave enough to do that. I ended up, you could spend hours telling me the whole story, but I ended up working for this most amazing consultancy, one big happy data geek family, different teams doing different data disciplines, very supportive, always online, answering questions, supporting each other. Absolutely loved it. And I was absolutely heartbroken when they pulled out of the UK. I didn't want to move to Denmark to be in their corporate office. So although Denmark's a fabulous place, I wish I could, we had the family circumstances to allow it, but I couldn't do that. And I ended up working at, so I panicked. So going back to what we were saying earlier, going, oh my God, I got no job. At least last time I left knowing I had left the bank, knowing I had another job to go to. And I remembered meeting somebody at a Dharma event and having a good laugh with him, and him saying, you know, it's really funny, we're competitors, but if ever you need me for anything, let me know. And so I've now discovered LinkedIn and the value of my network, but my network was really small. But I sent Lawrence an email and said, Lawrence, I don't suppose you've got any jobs going, because I've just lost my job. They're pulling out of the UK. And he emailed back going, amazing. That's a wonderful timing. I was just making a decision on who to hire as a data governance consultant, and I didn't like any of them. When can you do a phone call? And within a week, I had a job offer and went straight into another consultancy. That was run by ex-Accenture partners, and it was like chalk and cheese. They dumped me in the middle of nowhere to save a client who'd frog marched the previous consultant off the premises because he'd said something that truly offended them. And they didn't support me. Gone was this like lovely, happy family of people that helped me. It really toughened me up though. And I learned some really valuable lessons in that role. But one thing I really found hard was that I had to be away from home Monday to Friday. And I asked repeatedly if I could work from home one day. And my boss kept saying, no, the client won't allow it. There were lots of family stuff going on that meant I wanted to be at home in the week more. And a recruitment consultant rang me up and told me about a contract role local to home. And up until that point, I was too scared because I was a permanent employee of both consultancies I worked for. But I was so desperate to be back at home, I decided to take the risk. It was for a regulatory program, which gave you some comfort that they weren't going to can it a month in or something. And I did that. But I think whilst I was working for the consultancies, I started thinking that there were better ways of doing things. So when I was a contractor, I came across a chap called Dylan Jones, who I think Alex will talk about a little bit more about later as well. And he did an interview with me for his website, and people started contacting me and saying, did I do data governance training? And the first time I said yes, it was a good thing it was on the phone. Nobody could see my face because I think I was going white as a sheet and just crossing my fingers behind my back going, yeah, I do training. It totally underestimated me how much effort it was to create the training course. Didn't sleep for about 3 days beforehand because I was so worried. But when I got there and did the course, I started the day with a room of 10 people. 2 of them were really excited that I was there to help them kickstart their data governance. The other 8 did not want to be there at all. Data governance was really boring. But at the end of the day, I had 10 really enthusiastic, amazing, they were off out there to go and fight the good fight and do data governance. And I'd had this light bulb moment that actually I could help more people by doing training. And that was the beginning. And I started taking days off of contracts that I was doing to build up my training and coaching business. So that's kind of how I am morphed. And there was quite a period of time when I was doing a regular contract, but part-time, so that I could build up my business until I got to the stage where I said, actually, I want to do this all the time. And I'm brave enough finally to be responsible for getting all my own work. So yeah, that was me. So Alex, how did you get to where you are today?
Well, different story. We will get your questions short. So I started working for a big consultancy. I worked for Deloitte for a long time, quite a long time. And and a lot of things Nicola talked about being sent out to places and sort of young family and essentially they've got quite an evil business model and always trying to get more money out of the client for what didn't consider really offered a lot of value. I went the other route. I actually started my own consultancy. I started and it was, as Nicola said, very scary. Very young family at the time. No guaranteed income. I'd been on very good money at Deloitte, and that was tough. And what I found, and I'd always wanted to do that. I'd always sort of said at some point, I think I was probably 30, I'm going to start my own company. That's what I want to do. And we grew it to a kind of decent size. I mean, it wasn't huge, but it was a decent size. But my entire life was just felt like admin. I mean, I just stopped enjoying doing the job, which was talking to customers, fixing stuff, getting people excited about data. And I spent all my time doing admin and HR and dealing with crap that I didn't want to deal with and dealing with, things that had gone wrong that I hadn't been responsible for, but I was accountable for because it was my gig. And I found I was really rubbish at it. I was really bad at running a company. I was really, really bad at it. All the things that they shouldn't do. I had favorites. I did sort of, I kind of got involved with stuff I shouldn't have got involved with. I didn't push the work out enough, so I took it all on myself. I used to look at what we had to pay every month for salaries, and same as Nicola, keep me awake at night, like how are we going to make that much money and all that stuff. So I decided that really I didn't want to carry on doing that anymore. So that's when I kind of started off doing something on my own. And I sort of fell into higher education. It was again, I got a call from a recruitment consultant who I knew, who I'd actually used to bring people in to some other businesses, and he knew I wasn't very happy. So I ended up working for one of the providers in UK higher education, and it was kind of traumatic time because I had to kind of get rid of the company. It kind of went okay. It was somebody else took it over, so it wasn't a disaster. Didn't make any money out of it at all. So it was like however many years I put in for that, didn't really get anything out of it. But I did make me think two things. One is that I never want to work for a big company again. None of us are going to be happy. I really enjoyed the autonomy of working. I always said like the highs when you we won a piece of business off IBM, which was like the best thing in the world. Like when you've got a small group of people and you're all kind of like Nicola was saying with her consultancy, pushing in the same direction, everybody's kind of on it. Everybody sort of got to follow the same mission. It's brilliant. But when it's bad, it's really bad. I mean, when it's bad, it's horrible. There's no safety net. There's nobody to go to. You don't know what you can do. Nobody's going to help you. If you can't fix it yourself, you're screwed, basically. And I thought, I don't want to put myself in that position again. That's not a lot of fun. So I think, coming in and working in a small sector. So, university sector in the UK is not huge, a couple hundred universities, but it's big enough for me. And there's a lot of, what I found is that a lot of big players, your KPMGs, your Deloittes, PwCs, so a lot of large consultancies operating it. There's a few kind of mid-range consultancies that I know, and some of them are good, some of them not so good. And then there's kind of people like us. It's just kind of us. So there's definitely enough work to go around. And one of the things, so Dylan helped me, Nicola put me in touch with Dylan, and one of the things that I made a decision really early on, because I'd worked in lots of sectors when I was at Deloitte, was I decided to try and become a biggish fish in a small pond. So all of my work is pretty much referral because everybody knows everybody in HE, and I've been doing it 15 years now. So I kind of know everybody in HE. So people like today, somebody emailed me today, haven't spoken to them for 4 years. And the email this morning went, you still like data governance stuff? Because I know we talked about it 4 years ago because the sales cycles in HE are very, very long. And so, is this something we can talk about? It's like, zero cost of sale for me. This is somebody that I've worked with 4 or 5 years ago. So it's kind of a different experience to Nicola, although I would just say I definitely shared some of the imposter syndrome thing. And I think anybody that doesn't, I don't think is telling you the truth, or they're just arrogant. All of the people I enjoy working with, Nicola and some other colleagues, all have this thing where we are convinced tomorrow is the day that we get found out. And it's the only thing I think that keeps me going, because I know I'm really lazy. And I'll just, one of the problems with managing your own time is you kind of go, well, it's a nice day, I haven't gone back my bike, or I haven't got any client work I need to do today, so I'll go and do something else. And it's a fantastic way to run a lifestyle business. But you need that thing in the back of your mind going, if you don't put a bit of effort in, you're going to get found out tomorrow. And so I think it's kind of healthy and unhealthy, but I wouldn't worry about that if you think, I don't know enough. Most people know way more than they think they do. And it's not just about what skills you've got. It's about, your ability to understand people, to be empathetic, to deliver good work. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be better than the other people who are doing the job. So that's probably enough for me, Nicola.
Yeah, but I also think, picking up on that point, I think if you didn't have that fear, you probably wouldn't do a good job.
No.
Because if you were of an arrogant disposition, and I can say it because I know she never registered for this this masterclass. I had one of the kind of messages that I was talking about a couple of weeks ago to somebody saying, can I just book 30 minutes of your time to pick your brains about becoming an entrepreneur? I'm thinking about leaving my permanent job to do this. And I sent her a message back saying, I'm really sorry. I just don't have the capacity to do that for everybody. But the good news is Alex and I are doing this masterclass in a couple of weeks. Here's the link. Why don't you come along? And you can get your questions answered. And she sent me back quite a snotty message to say, I'm an acknowledged thought leader in the space. I don't need your masterclass. I just wanted to pick your brains about being an entrepreneur. And so I just sent a polite message back to say, well, that's actually the whole what we're covering. We're not covering how to do data governance. We're covering how to be a consultant. So there you go. There's all sorts out there.
Well
So,
out of
but
order.
I think it's good to have that fix. I think that means you do a good job, because even from a very quick message exchange with that lady, I don't think she's going to do very well
No.
because of her attitude. There you go. So I've been sharing the link to the retro board. Let me share it one more time, because I know some people have dropped off and come back, and that means you can't always see it. So we guessed that we would probably have more questions than we have time for. So we're going to try and time box the remaining half an hour into 5 sections. So, but I think we will probably if we did it evenly, that's not right, because some of the columns have a lot more questions than others. So if you want to follow that, well, no, I don't think we need to vote on the first column. Do you, Alex?
No.
So we will
Let
do
people
those
vote, and
two, and
we'll
then
answer the first question.
yes, we've already answered the first question, so this is very true. Sorry, if you're not on mute and there's a noise on in your room, can you put yourself on mute? It makes it hard for everybody to hear. So we answered the first one, which is great. I didn't create somewhere to drag them like I often do in training courses. Anyway, so I love the next question. You can go first, Alex. You started a consultancy business. That's great. Then what? How do you keep motivated when you keep getting turned down?
Okay, I'm gonna kind of do like super quick answers here. So the 2 points when I read this is so, sometimes you've got to accept that you're going to get turned down. It might be because the other person was better and there's a learning for you there. It might be because you didn't read the room very well and you were just being put in to put a quote in. What I've learned from here, and it used to really upset me, and I used to get very down about it and very grumpy. I think I've probably been grumpy with Nicola about it a few times. But what I've learned is I just don't bid for that kind of work. Now I know that's a very sort of easy answer to give, but I just look at the work and think, because my day, I sometimes some of the things that I'll see are for quite big pieces of work, and it'll take me 2 or 3 days to do the proposal. I think if I'm not going to win that work, then why would I do it? So what Nicola's definitely taught me, and Dylan, I'm terrible at asking people for money. I hate talking about money. Not an ideal thing to do when you run your own business. But now Nicola has drilled into me, because I used to undercharge for what I did, is that I now ask for really serious questions about budget, about timescales, about whether we're in a competitive bid, what the criteria are, and just kind of get a feel for it. So I just don't, and I used to chase the work, and because I thought I needed the work. If I turned it down, then I'd never get a chance to do it again. I just don't do that anymore. I think there's a question later about differentiation, which we might talk about, but my view is that I have got a certain thing that I do that some people like, and that's a really good fit. And if I don't win that bit of business, I'm going to be kind of upset. But the other stuff where people send me an RFP, request for proposal, and say, 30 people are putting a bid in, I won't even look at it.
No, I'm with you on that. And I think the other thing, it's this general feeling about always moving forward. So I probably will have 3 or 4 calls with prospects every week. And the odd one, I'll come off the call and go, didn't like them, don't think I want to work for them or with them. But the majority of them, I'm just coming off it going, oh, they're amazing people. I really love the sound of it. That'd be an amazing opportunity. And I'm like, my husband must get sick of me kind of going down to get the next cup of tea going, gosh, you never guess who I've just spoken to. And it sounds like it's a done deal. And then, to be fair, I've normally forgotten because I've moved on to the next one kind of thing. But I think it's something you learn is that very few of them actually come to anything.
No.
I think I can't remember. My husband used a great analogy, but my best friend did it. She said you have to keep kissing the frogs and find out which one's going to become the prince. And it's a bit like that. And I think it is hard because I'm not thick-skinned. I'm very sensitive to everything. But I've learned in terms of business, you have to become thick-skinned. And sometimes you don't get the job, you don't get the work, and you just think, and you find out who did, and you go, well, good luck to you then if you want to do that. So
Yeah.
it's that kind of, I think it's a kind of, it's focusing on it wasn't meant to be, and just focus on the next one rather than getting bogged down.
Yeah, and if
Not
you know,
getting
the other thing I do now, Nicola, is I always go back and ask and say, why didn't I win it? And you know, and so sometimes you can get some good advice, and maybe you don't want to hear it, but it's good. The other thing at HE, just play the long game. They're going to come back to you, right? If it gets wrong, somebody's going to come back to you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about branding as well at some point, Nicola, on one of the questions, because I think that's really important about how you come across as a single person against big consultancies. They've got all these amazing templates and decks, and hopefully we get time to cover that off, because I think that's quite important.
Yeah. So should we
Right.
move to the next column and give
Yes.
people, there's not that many. So if I'm going to give you all 2 votes for the getting started column, just vote on the getting started column. And we will answer perhaps the top 2 questions. And
Yes.
then we'll move on to the next column, and then we can come back if we've got time and do the ones we haven't answered.
Yeah.
Because we're just trying to cover as much information and answer
As
as
we
many
can.
questions in a short time.
I tell you, I think what's interesting as well about probably getting started, I don't know what you think, Nicola, is because everything that you do that's not kind of billable is a time sink, and most of it's not really very interesting. It's definitely worth setting yourself up and investing a bit in invoicing, accounting, maybe CRM, but kind of just nowadays it's so cheap, just systems that allow you to do the boring stuff, like in the UK, your VAT and all that kind of stuff, the tax, the boring stuff, just make it really easy to do. There's a lot of really fantastic products out there. They don't cost much money. The only, I think sometimes the other thing I probably learned getting started is you do have to expect that you are going to have to pay for some specialist knowledge. So things like accountancy and stuff, you don't want to get that wrong. So we don't mind paying for that. But there's a lot of stuff that big companies pay for. You think, well, just get the app for that. So I think when you do get started, thinking about the stuff that the admin stuff that you can make go away, and certainly I know Nicola uses virtual assistants and all that kind of stuff. Definitely worth being a bit innovative. You don't need to spend much money. You're a small business, but you can definitely take a lot of your Saturday mornings you can have back. Would you agree with that, Nicola?
Yes, absolutely. I think so. So, right, did I say 2 questions?
We did.
That a lot of you have voted for a question that we thought was not relevant to the masterclass, but that perhaps we'll have to answer the second one. I wouldn't bother wasting your votes on another column. You'll get some more ones for that one. So, so we've got overwhelmingly 14 votes for what are the necessities or must-haves when starting as a consultant, i.e. what do you need in your back pocket in terms of documentation and training packs? I don't think I had anything. Did you, Alex?
Nothing.
So I don't, yeah. So there's your answers. What I think is you have got to be prepared to work the hours to do it.
Yeah.
So the ideal situation is your client pays you to create those things, and then you don't just copy and paste and use somebody else's company name, because some of the big 4 have done that, and I've seen it, and it's atrocious.
Yeah.
But you can start to build templates. Alex is better than me at this, so I often ask him if he's got a template. But it's something you do. You suddenly realize you've done the same thing 3 times, and then you suddenly go, so this is my template. This is my starting place for this. So I don't think you need it. I think you probably need to think about the business side of things more rather than the data governance side of things. So have make sure that have you got a consultancy agreement, because some of the big companies will ask you, Others will categorically say you have to sign theirs or else, but
Yeah.
you need to have that, and probably a basic NDA, probably,
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's that. I can't think of anything else.
No, I mean, most of the stuff I've developed, and I do, as Nicola said, I have reams of templates, but I've developed them over time with client work. There's a hump, when you start off, you have to do a lot. So, we run data strategy courses. Creating that content is, I don't know, 100, 200 hours work, which you can't really charge the client for, or some of it. But once you've got it, then it's a question of tweaking it as per the client. I think there's just a couple of points that I'd like to make. One is absolutely Nicola's point about don't just copy what you've got from one client to another. It's disrespectful. You've got to listen to what the customer wants. Every one of our proposals is different. It may have some stuff that looks the same, but it's different. And it starts off with context and background to explain exactly what we think we've learned from the client and how we've written the proposal to meet the needs and the requirements as we've heard them. It's not just a standard boilerplate. And certainly, I've seen some stuff with ChatGPT and other generative AI, which I think is beyond shoddy. The second thing is not early on is that we've recently paid for branding. So we've paid for people to do artwork, branding, and copywriting. And I never had a lot of time for that. I always thought that was a bit of a waste of money. But having now been involved with it and kind of created the brand, so I started a joint venture with somebody, creating a brand and doing sort of people doing kind of synthesizing what I do, which is talk too much, and creating really compelling copy to kind of reach areas of customers that I wouldn't currently reach. It's a decision that you need to go into with your eyes open. But certainly, I'm rubbish at creating slides. And when I write things, I write too much. And actually seeing the value of people being good at what you're not good at and paying them for you, that's pretty much what you're asking other people to do for you.
Yeah.
So you kind of need to have that mindset, I think, sometimes about that if you need to get something done and you're not very good at it, then you might have to pay somebody to do that. And that's money well spent if you get the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. So the second question was based on your experience, what is the most effective way to demonstrate the value of data governance to businesses? And I was thinking, well, that's a doing data governance question, not a thing. But so many of you have voted on it. It made me think, are you then saying, is it the most effective way to demonstrate value of data governance to the businesses you want to work with? Well, I would say, based on my experience, the best way is not to. You don't want to be trying to convince somebody they want to do data governance. You want to be working with somebody that wants to do data governance, and you want to convince them that they want you to help them do data governance. That's my take on it. And there's something, so the wonderful Dylan Jones, which we keep name dropping, I did one of his early coaching programs that's become his, like, my data brand that he does now these days. And he had a look at my website and said, why are you telling people what data governance is? I went, because they need to know. And then I'd got what data governance was, what the benefits were. And he went, well, but they wouldn't be looking for you if they didn't already know what data governance was, and that it's valuable. They're looking for you because they want help. And that has always stuck in my mind. So I would say, you're not trying to, they won't even be talking to you if they don't understand, or at least somebody in the company understands the value of data governance. So I don't know if you've got anything else you'd add.
Really quickly, probably coming to the end. So one of the things that you'll hear a lot is that you've got to make your data governance initiatives support your strategic objectives. So you'll hear that a lot. We talk about it in these masterclasses. What I found so sometimes people just want to do better things with data, and they don't. Your data governance is a bit of a damaged brand in some ways. So sometimes you don't even talk about data governance. You talk about accountability for data or doing better things with data or whatever it is. So sometimes it's about in support of something that's already there, they're looking for a solution. So sometimes they're not looking for data governance, they're looking for something that actually is data governance, but they don't know what it is. Or as Nicola says, they already know what it wants, and they want somebody to be a specialist and to help them. The second thing I would say is, much as people will say to you, we want data governance to support our strategic objectives, having written, I don't know, 50 data strategies in my life, I find that not as true as it should be. I think a lot of the time where you really can show the value of DG is where people say, our data's always in silo, I can't find anything, we can't trust the data, we have to cleanse it 50 times. And actually saying, the solution to some of these kind of operational lived experiences is the thing that I'm good at. So it's almost like putting yourself in the solution side of people's problems, and I think that is that can be quite compelling to individuals or to groups who are spending an enormous amount of time, and it's never going to get any better unless something changes. So I would say they were the thing I would add to what Nicola said.
Yeah, absolutely. So now this one, I think you and I are going to have slightly different answers to. We did say 3 from this column, didn't we? I'm losing my mind. It's been a long
We
day.
said 2, but you know,
Oh, did we? Oh, let's do this one. It's good though. So
Go for it.
gain broad data governance knowledge from various businesses stroke sectors, or focus on one and few other related business sectors.
Go for it.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
So although well, you've already said in your introduction, Alex is very niche. I'm not, but I was. I've done a number of entrepreneur, business owner programs over the years, and I would recommend you do one and invest one if you're serious about doing this. It gives you all sorts of tools and techniques and a support network to help you from other business owners. But every single program, everything I've done, I've always been told the same thing: you must niche first. Because otherwise you're competing with everybody else that says, I can do data governance across every sector. And yet you might not have experience across every sector. So I got pigeonholed into financial services because I came from banking. The first consultancy put me in information. The second one put me in the Ministry of Defence. So now I've got 2 more sectors. But Solvency II came along and I got well and truly stuck in insurance for 5 years. That's when I was really doing that transition from contractor to consultant. And I wanted to kind of say, I'd argued with my bosses at the insurance, the consultancies, to say, I can do it across everybody. We all know data governance is data governance. We could do it across any sector. But you know, everybody likes somebody that understands their sector. So you really, really need to niche. And it's only after you've niched for a while and get really well known in that other people will then come to you and say, you know, will you help us? So I used to do all my marketing. Everything was very focused at financial services. It isn't anymore. It's not focused at any particular sector. I'm getting a lot of work in the public sector at the moment. So I did a blog from the Ministry of Justice. I let them do a guest blog on my website last week because it's a good way of signaling, by the way, I work with government departments. But it changes. I've got so many different sectors that I'm working with at the moment, but that's taken a long time to get there. But you're very niche, aren't you, Alex?
Yeah, and I think it's just, again, it's a different thing. That to a lot of stuff in higher education, there's, you know, like any sector, it's very acronym based. It's very different to something like manufacturing or financial services, the way that it works. It's not it's a lot more diverse. There's a lot of different things going on inside a university. It's very pretty chaotic. So I think to be credible, to be able to answer problems, so I can talk to people about UK regulatory returns and the issues that there are with data, and you know, and be, you know, be sort of quite sort of authentic and knowledgeable about those things. So I think it's easier for me to be successful in the sector for those 2 reasons. One is because I know it really well. I know how it works. And secondly, people know me in it. So that's the decision that I made. Now, if I was trying to expand the business and be 50 consultants, this isn't going to fly. There are some very good mid-sized consultancies, but they have to work really hard. So it's whenever I get asked to do other things, I just generally pass it on to Nicola. Because it's not, I wouldn't feel comfortable. I really like knowing my kind of audience and knowing how things work. And I just, the idea of going to go into transport, for example, and talk about that kind of stuff, I just wouldn't feel comfortable. It's not the way I want to work. So there's not a right way or wrong way, but for the way that we run, you know, kind of this business, then we made a decision that we were going to do that. And I think, and even though the HE sector is not in great shape, there's not a lot of money in it at the moment. There's always ways and means to make data relevant and for people to release money for that if you understand deeply the sector. So this idea that if the sector runs out of money, you're going to be out of business, I think it's far more nuanced than that, and certainly it's not been our experience.
Very much so. So if we move on to the pink column, and some of you have already worked out that I've given you 2 more votes. So we will do 2 questions, otherwise we won't get to the other thing.
No.
If we've got time, we can do some others. So please vote on the getting customers, on the pinky, ready, whatever color you'd like to call that. I have noticed that in this and another column, somebody's obviously dragged a card and managed to merge it. So one of the cards in this column actually has 2 questions on it. And I don't know how I can't unmerge it. Oh, unmerge card. There you go. I've unmerged the card. So there you go. You
They're
convert,
both,
go and find the
they're
other one.
both good. They're both good questions. Yeah, they're both
Yeah,
interesting
so there you go.
questions.
I've corrected the merges. Right. So shall we make a start on the current top one? Because it's way ahead, and then people can carry on voting. We do the next
Yeah.
one. So, other than relying on agents to approach you with
Ooh,
roles, how would you suggest proactively securing engagements? Ooh,
blimey. Okay, should I have a quick go at this one,
please
Nicola?
do.
Okay, so for me, I don't work through agents at all. I don't work through proxies. I want to talk to the customers. I think there's, we could do a whole thing about how do you sell to people. I think let me just talk about 2 things. One is I think you need some kind of presence that people can find out what you do, and whether that's kind of websites or webinars or the way you use LinkedIn, although my view on that is it's a bit toxic. But you need to have I do think you need to have a brand as a consultant, and this has really come clear to me the last 3 or 4 years. I think you need to have a brand, and you need to talk about what makes you different. So when we talk to people about what our brand is, we talk about being very authentic, about really understanding the customer, because we've worked in the sector a long time. So this is me and my colleague in the JV. We talk about all the things that we've done, all the people that we've worked with. So we're kind of like we're a safe pair of hands. And the other thing we say is we do everything bespoke. So you don't get that big 4 cookie cutter approach, just change the name, as Nicola said, and we work with people to fix their problems, and we can give you lots of reference sites. So we think that makes us maybe compelling in a different way to somebody a big 4 would be. So there's certainly something about having a brand and being very clear about who you're marketing to. I think Dylan calls it the ideal client or something. So we have an ideal client, which is like a director of planning. That's who we try and get to. We don't tend to work through IT, for example. We tend to work with people who use the data the most. So I think that's the first thing about getting your first contract. And the second thing is just is play the long game. So there's people that, same as Nicola, that will get in touch and say, hey, look, I haven't got any budget. Can I just pick your brains for 10 minutes? And if they're people that I know or I like them, then I'll do it. And I'll do it because A, the sector's been very good to me, but B, 1 out of 10 of those is going to come back, and they're going to come back in a non-competitive bid. They're going to come back, and we've built that relationship. So people buy from people. So I think it's about one of the nice things about you can do as an independent consultant is it's not transactional. A lot of my customers are my friends. I know it sounds really trite, but genuinely they are. And I think it's because they know what they're going to get, and they know that when they ring you or they ask you something, you're not always on the clock with them. So I think that's for me the thing that makes it has made us successful is we have it takes a while, but you build up experience and you can reference it, and that's massive in the AHE sector. And secondly is that you respect people throughout the sales life cycle, and not just when they've got money. That's my view, Nicola.
I think so. Well, and also I hate sales, so I worked through agencies when I was contracting.
Okay.
But that's the only time I've ever worked through agencies. I hate sales, which is really stupid to be an independent consultant. So early on, the first person I ever paid to help me with my business was a sales and marketing coach. And after a couple of sessions with me, he went, look, Nicola, you're never going to be comfortable selling. You're always going to hate it. So he recommended that I adopt what's called an inbound marketing. So I don't go after them. I don't cold call anybody. I don't send anybody an email or a LinkedIn message saying, do you want to work with me? I actually spend my time getting known for my credibility, making myself credible as an expert, getting people to come back and say, do you do this? It's amazing how many people come back and say, do you do training? And you feel like saying, did you look at my website? But the answer is, yes, of course I do. Would you like a call? So I find doing that. So it's all about exactly what Alex is saying, building your personal brand, getting known. So creating content, standing up at conferences. I spend so much of my time these days creating videos, podcasts, blogs, standing up at conferences, but it pays off. And it's like you were saying, Alex, it's the long game as well. So if you're in a permanent job now, perhaps planning to be a consultant next year, the year after, get talking at conferences now, get
Yeah.
known, get seen, because that's what people want. They don't want somebody that goes, hello, I'm just I'm available for work. uh it's a little different than that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there you go. So second question is now at the top of this, but it was also 5 votes. And I think we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but are there industries or company sizes that are more receptive to seeking help from a data governance consultant than others? I've encountered healthcare organizations in the US are very insular and highly prefer clinicians versus outsiders. Is a startup too small for an engagement?
Mm.
Oh, so I think anybody that's able to pay you is big enough. The smallest I've worked for was a charity that had 80 people. Oh no, tell a lie. I'm doing some work with a Canadian organization that has 12. So as long as they pay you, I will, that's big enough. Startups are not good.
No.
Because startups try and basically bootstrap. They try and leverage on the minimum investment possible. So I've
Yeah.
had I gave over an afternoon. A friend of mine was doing the marketing for a startup. I spent an afternoon with them, telling them why they needed data governance, why they need to do it now, while they were a greenfield site. And the people in the room were all excited. And the next week I got the investors won't pay for that. We don't need it to grow. So I wouldn't go after a startup. That's a type of customer rather than size. Size doesn't bother me, as long as I was going to say they're going to pay me. But there are sectors. HE likes you if you've got HE. Financial services like you if you've got financial
Yeah.
services. If you work in the insurance sector and you've only done personal lines and you try and go to work in like the London markets like I did, they go, well, you've got no insurance expertise. And you feel like going, sorry, have you not read my CV? Thing. So there are an awful lot of industries that do like, and I think to be fair, they all like it. I was having a call with an oil and gas company last week and they asked how much experience I had with the oil and gas sector. So they will all do that. So which is why I think it's better. There's a number of reasons why you should niche, but niche in what you know first. Get known for that. And then there are always going to be enlightened people that say, well, if you can do it for that industry, you could come and help us do it here.
Yeah.
And again, even within it, there are companies that will do it. So when I got into the London markets, the person who hired me, and that was a contract, came from a bank. So somebody else at the interview said, you haven't got London's market insurance expertise, but Mark had come from a bank and said, I'm doing all right. So, I'm sure Nicola will be all right doing this. So lots of good things there. So we're really, really running out of time. So perhaps one question from the getting bigger one, but I haven't given you the vote yet. So hold your horses. Right, there you go. I've given you a vote. Perhaps why don't you vote for one vote in the next column as well while you're at it? So you got 2 votes and you can use them in either column. Let's do that so that we can do as many. I think we might have to do a follow-up at this rate, Alex.
I was just
Answer the
thinking
other
maybe
questions.
we need to do a follow-up, yeah, because these are great questions, and I don't feel we're doing them justice, but they are all good questions. I wish I'd been able to ask some of these questions when I started it, but if I would have felt a lot more comfortable, I think that
It
maybe
would
I
be
was
good
on
if
the
I'd
right
thought
track.
to ask the questions,
No,
let alone had somebody
no.
to ask them. So, which is good. So, we've got a very popular one. How do you keep on top of ever-changing ways of working, e.g. AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, don't people are chasing. I've seen all sorts of stuff like data governance for AI and how AI is going to change the world. It is. I think again, yeah, I'm very client led. I mean, I'm going to in HE we've got all sorts of issues around plagiarism and chat GPT and AI, but I'm led by the client. So I'm they're saying is it worth us turning AI onto our internal systems? Like, no, that's an insane idea for all of these reasons. So I think I try and focus on what's going to help my customers. What are they interested in? Certainly, Nicola and I have both kind of used it for our own purposes. It is good for some things. Again, it cuts down the admin, but certainly I'm not trying to get ahead of the curve there because the sector's not ahead of the curve. That's what I would say on that one.
Yeah, and also I think there's so much you could spend your whole time making sure you're up to date with everything,
Yeah.
and you'd never actually have time to do any work. So I tend to have a browse on LinkedIn. But one of the programs I did actually said you should make sure you create more content than you consume. So I mustn't spend an hour a day on LinkedIn. If I've got an hour spare, I should be writing a new blog, not reading somebody else's. But what I tend to do is, go to networking events, go to conferences, because you want to be networking and building your network. But whilst you're there, you're going to have all these sessions. You can absorb that knowledge then. And then I do a deep dive when somebody asks me a question. So I am writing a blog for a client at the moment on AI governance and how it relates to data governance. So I knew a little bit. I'd seen a presentation at an event last September on it. Things are moving so quickly that I reached out to somebody that I know really knows it. And I had half an hour call with him this morning. So I've done my research when it was ready and time to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah. We should answer. I think, can I be cheeky? I think there's one in the final column that talks about the fear. What if you win a contract and you think you've oversold your ability?
Yes, that's a good one.
I think we should have a go, because my view on this is you've got to be, so you've got two options for me. One is that you partner, and certainly that's something like I would do with Nicola and some other people. So find out who does your kind of stuff, or does stuff that is related to your stuff, and be prepared to bring people in. I think the other thing is you just got to be really honest with the customer, because they're going to find out anyway. It's better to serve the bad news hot. And I think you will maintain a long relationship with them. And generally, they're going to kind of help you get through it, because, they've entered a contractual agreement with you. So even though you kind of want to hide it, and it's also really bad for your mental health. I mean, nobody wants to go to work when you think, oh, this is the day we get found out. So I think you try and offer them a solution by bringing in specialist expertise, even if it hurts you financially, because you've taken the contract, and or you're very honest with them about what you thought you were doing and the gap, and the fact that you're not able to deliver that. It's a tough thing to do, but I feel very strongly about those two things.
And I think also, to be honest, say to people, if you're not comfortable. I was asked to do an RFP last year, and I thought they were asking for the wrong thing. So I told them.
Yeah.
So I could have quoted for it, but I didn't want to do it. And then another RFP that I might be working on at the moment is a request for what's the P bit? Proposals. It's a tender thing, Charlene. So I'm working one at the moment with one of my associates, and there's a huge list of requirements, and we can't do them all. So the first time they asked us, we went back and said, we can only help you with this, 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 and this. And then I think, picking up on your point, because this same RFP is making me think about it, is the customer hasn't been clear and you've misunderstood the brief. I think it's really important not just to have somebody send you a document and go from it. Always ask to talk to them, keep going back and clarifying. You will have some customers who really aren't entirely sure what they want, and that's not on you misunderstanding the brief. It's they're doing it wrong. So what Alex and I've done in the past, and I actually, it was really funny. I'm going to do some work with a consultancy starting next week. And it's really funny. Consultants are out there telling the world that they can do data governance and they can't. And I have to help them behind the scenes. And this guy's going, I don't know how long this piece of work's going to take. So what do you reckon? How many days? What do you reckon? It's a 5-day, or is it, do you want to give me a quote for 10 days? And I went, if we were talking to our respective clients, we'd say, should we do a 1-day discovery piece of work to scope exactly what we're going to do? And he just burst out laughing, went, done, just send me an email quote. And that was it. We were, and I think that's what you've got to do is, because then you avoid all this. I'm going to spend a day with the guy next week. And by the end of it, we'll know how big this piece of work is, whether I want to do it. Kind of thing. And then we can whether he wants to pay my rates to do the rest of it. So really useful one there. So
should we try and finish with 2 points each of what makes a good data consultant, governance consultant?
Go on then.
Do you want to go first? No,
you go first, because you were already thinking about that one.
I was thinking about
it.
So I think what makes a good independent data governance consultant is the fact that you are independent, you are absolutely customer focused, you're not carrying anybody's agenda but your own, you're friendly, you're open, you're happy to pass your knowledge on, and allow capability to be built internally, because they're going to keep coming back to you. So you're not that, so essentially I always like to think of myself as like a critical friend. As somebody that can come in and kind of go, that's not quite right, but here's how we can fix it together. And that's the way I love to work, and Nicola and I love to work. So I think a lot of it is about that. The joy of working for yourself is that you can kind of let your personality shine through, and if that and just be really honest. There's people this idea that you're different in work than you out of work doesn't make any sense to me, right? So I think it's about trusting yourself, believing in yourself, and really being authentic and just like customer focused the whole time. It's just not about you, it's about making them better.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. So I think from my point of view, what would I add to that? I would say passion. I don't think you should do this if you're not passionate about it, because
Yeah.
you're all doing data governance already. You know how challenging and hard it is. And now you're going to deliberately make it harder by being an independent consultant as well while you're at it, or any other kind of consultant or contractor. So you've got to have that passion, because that's what keeps you going. And I think it's this, don't try to do the minimum. I think you've got to try and do a really good job. So one of my early clients, as Alex was saying, a lot of it is your network. You've got to build your network. With somebody that I'd worked with at Lloyd's Bank, who'd also, like me, got brave enough to leave after many years and became a data architect at another company. And he asked me to come in, and I did a lovely piece of work with them. And on his desk, he had a postcard that his wife had bought him that said, "Be awesome or don't bother." And I just sat there. I think I got there before him one day, and I just sitting at his desk going, "I love that postcard." And I turned it over, and it was made by Paper Chase, and you can't see it, but it's on my notice board back there. I've had it all these years to remind me, because there are days when you're tired, you're having all the challenges that we've talked about, and you think, I could just do this and the client would probably be happy. And I think, no, I got to stick by my postcard, be awesome or don't bother.
Cool. That's really good.
So,
right. Thank you all.
I can't believe that hour went so quickly.
Yeah, I hope it was useful.
Yes, I do hope it was useful to everybody. And yeah, so it'd be lovely to know if some of you do launch successful careers, do get in touch and keep in touch and tell us, won't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are recording this. I will get the edited bits of me and Alex pulling our hair out before it started and things like that. And I'll get it up on my training platform for free access. It might well be the next week or two, because I am busy at conferences and traveling a lot the next couple of weeks. But I will get that out there for you. So thank you for joining. It's been lovely seeing you all.
Thank you all.